Peace and love, family. So in this video I'm going to address the question of whether shamanism and Christ consciousness are compatible. So I'll start by sharing like my direct experience with plant medicines, right? So in 2018 or 19 I had my first kind of breakthrough with ceremonial mushrooms, right? Where the God inside me awakened and realized who it was. Awakened to the fact that God lives within me and that I am God on the earth, and realizing that I had been sleeping. And in that moment, the God inside me awakened, right? And so this is Jesus' message, that we are gods, we are one with God, that God is within us, the kingdom of heaven is within us. So that was a very extremely emotional and divine experience I had, and a direct revelation through plant medicine to start with, right? I worked through a lot of my own trauma and, just karma through ceremonial use of mushrooms and other plant medicines. And so this helped me to access those aspects of me, that divine unconditional love, that Christ consciousness within myself, right? So I tapped into this Christ consciousness largely through the vehicle of plant medicine, right? And other, obviously, paired with other spiritual practices, prayer and fasting, and all these things were helping me to access this consciousness, this higher level of Christ consciousness, right? But plant medicine was a big factor in this, right? The last ceremony that I had took me directly to the feet of Jesus Christ on the cross, right? And so this was through the ceremonial use of mushrooms, okay? I was directly taken to the feet of Jesus Christ on the cross, where I cried and wept in absolute pain and agony, yeah, for the pain and suffering of the earth, and just pleading with God and asking why this had to happen, like why are we having to go through this, basically. And although it was incredibly painful and emotional, it was a very divine and sacred moment that I had at the feet of Jesus, like I was there, right? So this is a direct experience with his spirit, right? And I've never experienced anything that intense that hasn't been induced by plant medicine. I've had very deep emotional experiences of spirit, like with the Holy Spirit, like, and the drunkenness that comes over you when the Spirit is on you. Like when the Holy Spirit is in you, it's like a continuous feeling of drunkenness, right? Which is kind of close to the actual feeling of mushrooms, funny enough. So like when you're in the spirit like that, you don't need anything, but obviously these medicines, like, they just intensify it, right? And open up what's already in you, right? So another experience that I had, right, is where I was taken to Satan, directly to Satan, right? And I had an encounter with the spirit of Satan, which was another very emotional and intense experience, right? And I experienced like the intensity of all of these sort of energies, like lust, envy, shame, jealousy, hate, all of these aspects of Satan, right? That my guides were showing me, like he is an embodiment of this collective pain and suffering, right? And he was crying a river, and it's like that aspect of me, of myself, of creation, realizing that, like its time is up, do you know what I mean? Like it's finished. It's like a purge of that collective darkness, that evil, right? And so this is a really intense and very biblical, directly biblical experience that I had through ceremonial use of plant medicine, right? So this is what some people might say will call shamanic, but I think we just get lost in these terms, because shamanic is a term that comes from a certain tribe that live in the Siberian Peninsula, right? So we're just using some, terminology that people understand, right? But it's simply divine technology through the vehicle of plants, right? Because the spark of God is in everything, right? And the Bible is full of references of how plants can be used for healing, right? Revelation 22:2. speaks of leaves being for the healing of the nation, right? Ezekiel, right, talks about the leaves for healing. Psalms 51, purge me with hyssop, right? Using herbs for spiritual cleansing, right? And for purging, right? This is all shamanic talk, right? So also in Leviticus, right, it talks about using cedar wood and blood of birds, right? And mixing that with water in order to purify yourself ceremonially, right? That sounds like witchcraft to me. If I ever did hear anything that sounds like witchcraft, that would be it, right? There's a lot of funny stuff in Leviticus and Deuteronomy that is like, really kind of sounds quite sinister and dark, right? But people don't question that. So Exodus 16, right, talks about the manna from heaven that grew at the camp of the Israelites in the morning, in the dew, out of the dew in the morning, right? And it was like wafer thin flakes, right? And they called this the manna from heaven. And when it rots, it has maggots in it. That's how it's described in the Bible, yeah? Anyone that knows anything about mushrooms know that the closest thing that we could possibly associate to this description is mushrooms, right? Because they grow in the dew, they're like wafer thin, like flakes, yeah? And they just so happen to give you profound spiritual experiences, and they will take you to, in my experience, to the feet of Christ and experience direct experience with him, right? So let's talk about spirit animals. That's another shamanic topic, right? So Jesus Christ himself is associated with two specific animals, right? The lamb and the lion. His spirit always comes in the form of a lion as well. I have direct experience with that lion that's been with me from when I was a child, been protecting me in the spiritual realms, right? So many times when I've been spiritually attacked, this lion has come to my rescue, all right? So God associates himself with different animals because God's qualities are in the animals, right? Because the divine spark is within all of creation. So we can access these principles, these divine principles of these qualities that they have, that are the qualities of God, through the spirits of these animals, connecting with them, right? So that's spirit animals, right? Biblical spirit animals. So moving on to elemental magic, yeah, within the Bible. Everyone knows that water is used for baptism in order to purify and initiate people into Christianity, right? As a medium for purification, right? So this is using the element of water for purification. Jesus is said to come and baptize with fire, right? So purification through the element of fire. And so everyone knows that fire represents purification, truth, justice, and all the aspects of the element of fire that we use in our shamanic rituals and our purification rituals, right? Also, earth. Jesus used the element of earth, right, when he got the mud and he put it on the man's eyes and the man was healed from blindness. So he's using the element of air because he spits into the mud, right? That's using the element of air, the element of water, the element of fire, right? So this is elemental magic within the Bible, right? The problem is we just get lost in terminology, right? It's all the same thing, right? We get lost in words. Language confuses things, right? It's all the same. So moving on finally to acacia wood. So acacia wood is mentioned in the Bible many times, right? The actual tabernacle and the Ark of the Covenant was built from acacia wood, right? And acacia wood is one of the trees that has the most DMT in it. DMT, dimethyltryptamine, is what your pineal gland excretes naturally, right? And so when you have a powerful opening or spiritual awakening, right, that's your pineal gland excreting DMT and you having divine visions, right? Jacob was blessed in the place they called Peniel, right? And the Israelites have a long history of using acacia wood in their rituals, where they used to go to Kemet, Egypt, and sit in these chambers and fill them with smoke and breathe in the smoke and have all these divine visions, right? And so all of these things that I've put forward today should be enough to clarify the connection between shamanism and Christ consciousness, and help people to see that they don't have to contradict each other, and that they can be one, and that they are one. Okay, all right. Much love, peace and blessings. Peace be with you.